Hi, I'm Mike with House on the Mend, and in this video we are going to transform this useless little bottom corner of our basement stairwell from this to this, to this, complete with remote control lanterns and wallpaper on the inside. I'm going to tell you how to do it step by step. Would you please give it a thumbs up if you like the video? All right, let's get started. House on the Mend. Well, as you can probably see, I've started some preparatory work underneath the stairwell already. So you can see the drywall and a little bit of insulation. Let's hop over there and I'll show you what I've been doing. Okay, we are standing underneath the stairwell in between the framing on either side. So you can see the stairs are sloping down this way where our doghouse is going to reside. This space right here is going to be pull-out full extension drawer slides that are on order for storage. Very cool. And then this last spot here from this stud forward is going to be a standard coat closet with a rod going across for all our winter clothing to be stored. The first thing that I did was insulate the stairs. This is what it looked like raw, and now you can see I've got rigid foam insulation in here. I actually wanted mineral wool, or commonly known as rock wool insulation, but my local Home Depot did not have it in the 24-inch on center style used for attics. All they had was fiberglass. I didn't want that, so instead I got the 2-inch thick rigid foam insulation, and this is made by Artec. One side is plastic, the other side is reflective. The reflective side should always go towards the living space. Our storage area is not the living space. The living space would be considered the stairwell that leads into the house. So I have the reflective side pointed that way. Once I had the rigid foam insulation cut to size and pushed in, it's just a friction fit, then I took a pressure treated lumber. I cut 2 pieces, one that you can see right here, and another one of equal length is just out of camera view. That is establishing our pull-out storage area and separating the 3 spaces. I took a normal stud that you see right here and I put it right on the ground, and I transferred the stud locations with just a pencil and a speed square so that when I put this one up, it would perfectly match where the studs are going to go, and they'll be nice and plumb. I also took the time to notch these studs. Since they're at an angle, they'd be actually wider than 3.5 inches. So I just notched off both corners so that when the studs come up, they will be the equal width. I then took GRK structural screws and I screwed these into place on these 3 stair stretchers. Once that was done, I measured and I cut a piece of drywall, and as you see here, I also scribed a spot but did not cut it completely through, and that is the bottom area. You can see me kind of kicking it or pushing it into place with my feet before securing it with drywall screws. And I thought that was a nice design because then I won't have to go into that kind of wide angle there and try to put joint compound and everything. So that is up, all screwed into place. Now let's go back over towards where the front of the doghouse is. I'll show you what's next. Well, the next thing I want to do is start framing out this area for the opening. But to do that, I think it's best, for me anyway, to have like a storyboard or a template. So as you can see in this picture, I've taken the time to draw out what the doghouse is going to look like on a piece of hardy backer. That is cement backer board that's going to be the substrate we attach right here for the stonework to adhere to. So let's head out, let's cut that out, and that will be the basis for where we're going to cut and where we're going to frame out this area for the opening. All right, hardy backer can be cut with regular woodworking tools, provided they have a carbide tipped bit, but it contains silica, so you want to cut it outside, away from kids and animals, while using a respirator. There we go. Back in the basement, I have the hardy backer temporarily screwed into place here so it'll stay and not fall over on us as we mark right here where the top of the arch is, mark right here where the two openings are. Now, 3/4 inch plywood, about right here and here, is going to make up the wooden arch trim that will be in here. That's coming up here in a moment. But for now, we want to work on framing. So we are going to put a stud here, 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 and here. We're going to cut and remove this one, but instead of removing it right at the arch, I want to cut up the 1.5 inch width of a stud because we want to come across all of these studs with this one. So let's measure out 1.5 inches and mark our cut line. I've dimmed the lights in the hallway because we can do that now, so that you can see the laser line I'm shooting across here. This is where I want the height of these studs to be. All right, with those marks made, now we can cut this stud here, remove this piece here, measure and cut our 4 other studs and the piece going across the top. All right, before we get started nailing everything, let's transfer those marks where our studs are going to go, right by the opening. All right, I'm not a math teacher, but I do remember from Mrs. Turbyville's class, order of operations. And what do I mean by that? I mean, if we secure these two first by nailing them in place, we can possibly struggle getting this piece in. So the better way to do it is to get that one in, then slide this piece into place, and we can much easier wedge this piece over than to try to bend this piece. Watch this. We're going to want somewhere to attach the hardy backer, the sheetrock, and the roof line trim other than these 3 spots. So I took the time and I milled out these pieces of 2x4. Just like that. They come down enough that we can screw in the hardy backer, drywall, and trim detail. So to make room for this electrical wire, I did take my router and I notched out both of our little roof trim pieces here. Let's attach those next. Because we have this wire coming through here, I feel more comfortable being able to control the trajectory of some of these GRK structural screws. So I'm going to put one on each side here. I'm going to elevate sheetrock and the hardy backer about a 1/2 inch up off of the ground to make room for any eventual flooring. So I want to have a little bit more than this bit here to screw into the hardy backer so as not to have any tear out. So I just took a couple little pieces of 2x4, and let's create some extra space to screw into. Awesome. So I've been working on enclosing the doghouse from the inside. Maverick can't wait. I'm gonna wait to frame in this area until I get the flooring in and do a little bit of detail with the screw holes and everything, because it's so much easier to get in here now. All right, so I installed the Hardy Backer with the Hardy Backer screws that are specifically made to drill through this kind of concrete cement board. Then I started working on this arch of trim to hide the 2x4 framing behind it. So this is 3/4 inch plywood, and as you can see by these lines right here, I took my chop saw. It has a little switch on it that you can use to control the depth of cut, and I cut all the way through the material right down to the last layer with my chop saw, and I made this kind of accordion style into the plywood. And as you can see here, it makes it very flexible. And even though I wet it down in Maverick's kiddie pool, it wasn't flexible enough, and the first one that was full length broke. The second one I started making was about to break in this spot right here. So I cut away the straight pieces and just worked on the arch piece. I soaked that in the water, and then I brought it in from the little pool. I put it in the oven for a bit to warm it up, and then brought it down here, and I clamped it in place overnight. And then the next morning I glued and screwed and nailed it into place. Next thing I did was started working on the arch. So the first thing I did was I made an arch out of medium density fiberboard. And that arch is great, except the problem with MDF is it's very hard to paint the edges. They just soak the paint up into the sawdust and glue, and they don't create a nice smooth painted edge. So I use that as a template. So for the arch, I have 3/4 inch primed pine, and as you can see up top, I've cut all the angles at 22.5 degrees. That gives us a full 180. And it worked out that the long edge that you see up top and on the sides wanted to be 7 inches, so that when we put on our MDF template, we'll be able to, once the glue dries, trace and cut all the way around. And to hold everything secure, I drilled pocket holes and then glued and screwed all the way around both arches. Once all that was done, and I had the kind of half octagonal shape, I took that template, I clamped it at the very ends, and then hot glued it up at the top just to hold it in place for my flush cutting router to go around the actual pine wood. And the little collar you see on the top of this picture has bearings inside that it spins freely. That rides on the template and cuts what turned out to be a pretty perfect little arch. And that is going to go right like that, which I think is really cute. The brick is going to die into this, so I didn't do anything but just kind of take off the sharpness of the outer edge. I took a chamfer bit and ran around the inside edge, since the dog's going to be coming and going. I made a second arch just like this one for the inside to cover the accordion look of the plywood on the inside as well. I then turned my attention to the roofline trim. So I have a couple separate pieces here that are going to make up the top of the trim. These I joined together with pocket hole joinery. So let's install them now. All right, I have eye protection and hearing protection because we're going to be shooting nails into several of the spots. I am going to be using Liquid Nails construction adhesive, and this one right on the bottle says that it's good for wood, drywall, as well as cement board. So we couldn't be in any better shape by using this product as some adhesive. All right, I'm going to come back with a nail set for any of the nails that are close to the surface so that I can put some putty or spackle in there. But for now, I'm just making sure they're all seated so we can get to the next piece, which is this one right here. And everywhere I've pre-drilled is where the little starburst of the natural wood is going to go. So I can just use screws here and then just a few nails on the outer edge. So another bead of adhesive. All right, I'm only gonna worry about the squeeze out on the bottom. I don't want that to dry like that, so I'm going to get that out of the way. Now we can put on the caps. Now I really like the way this is looking with the 3 tiers build up. It gives it a lot of detail. And don't worry about the screw holes. I strategically placed those right where they'll be covered up by this little starburst effect out of rough sawn pine. Now, I just sat here with this mocked up and I measured this out and cut it and then joined it all together with glue and pocket hole screws. So I'm going to stain this kind of a natural golden stain color, just like this color out in front of the house. And then I'll come in and glue and nail this later. Now let's install our arch. And just to make sure we get a good adhesion of that glue, since all I have is little finish nails, I'm going to use some clamps. Now the cure time for the glue is 24 hours. After that, I'm going to fill in all the nail holes and then I'm going to paint everything right in place before we start the brickwork. I'm also going to paint right down in this area here so that I don't have to worry about masking off the brick since painter's tape doesn't adhere to masonry very well. Now, I'm going to paint this arch inside that I had to notch right here for the stairs coming down before I install it, because as you can see in this picture, I've put some really cute wallpaper inside that my wife Brooke found at Home Depot and we just fell in love with. So after all the paint dried on the trim, I taped everything off. Disregard these clamps, they're basically just holding the other side of the arch on that I glued in place. So I'm going to leave this tape on not only for the adhesive that goes behind the brick, but also throughout the grouting process. So I'm using just a standard ceramic tile adhesive. It calls for either a square or a triangular toothed trowel, which is what I have, a really small one, so I can try to get into tight places. And we are ready to continue with our bricks. So what I have here are thin bricks. They come in 2 foot long lengths about double as wide as this that you can very easily cut down to the size that you need. This particular brand is called Brickweb, and available on Home Depot's webpage. So anywhere where I've needed to make specialty little cuts or cut the bricks in half, I've been using this awesome Ryobi handheld wet tile saw. It works fantastic. And then I round the edges off with just a flapper wheel on my grinder. So let me show you how this process goes. It's actually pretty easy. You just gotta kind of push hard and get everything pressed into place. I've marked out some spots that are gonna help me with the sections I'm putting in, and I've pre-cut all this up here just so this portion of the video goes a little faster. All right, you wanna first press with the flat end of your trowel your adhesive into place. Make sure it's not too thick, but that you have a nice even layer. You have a 20 to 30 minute working time, so make sure you only apply as much as you can get your brick or tile into that area. Now I could do the whole thing because this will be done in that amount of time frame, but let's just start right here showing you this. Now that I have it pressed into a pretty good even layer, I want to turn around to one end or the other of the jagged tooth here. And if I start right here with this one, I think I'm going to run into the edge, so I'm just going to use the little edge here and just start creating the sawtooth edges in it. Anything extra I can just put back in for now into the bucket. And I'm pressing the teeth against the hardy backer, and that ensures that everywhere that we finished is evenly applied. Now this was going to be another half piece. I needed it to be a little longer to start on the arch here, so I had to cut a different piece. But let's start right here, and I just want to press it into place and just move it around just a little to make sure it seats just right and is level. So if the piece falls off of this webbing, it's no big deal. It can easily be cut back just with a pair of shears or a razor knife. So we are going to hang these cute little lanterns from about right here. They run on AA batteries and have a remote. I'm actually going to use baling wire to make a smaller arched little handle because I think that would hang a little lower than I would like. So I'm going to raise it up to about right there. So I marked out where I wanted the hooks to go, and it's just right in between these two sections of brick here and right here. So I pre-drilled those. I bought these hooks. They came looking stainless steel. So as you can see, I just painted them with whatever paint I had here at the house. If you wanted to get something oil rub bronze, that would probably be the best look. All right, when it gets to these last little bits, since you have the working time, you can come up here, kind of place your brick where you want it to be. You know, you want to have a bit of a grout line, and then draw that cut. Now, if you want on these smaller pieces, you can back butter them pretty easily. All right, and I'll repeat that same process for these last 4 pieces. All right, so I have grouted half of the doghouse, so I think that gives me a really good perspective to start filming now to impart what knowledge that I've gained through the process. So first of all, I ordered this pre-colored, pre-mixed grout in a bucket. You can buy grout or mortar in bags, and you can mix it with water to the consistency you want. You can also color it. That is, in my past experience doing cinder block walls and things, a lot of work, so I naturally gravitated towards this, but it is sanded, and it's got more sand than any kind of grout or mortar mix I've ever worked with, which makes me wonder about some of these bigger joints, because one of the things I notice is it says it's for joints that are 1/16 to 1/2 of an inch. So there's some little tight spots in certain areas of this wall that it's perfect for, but these bigger areas here, I'm curious to see how well it's gonna dry and cure. I might end up having to seal everything just to keep parts from falling off, but I'll let you know. All right, so I have a grout bag. It looks just like something that you would decorate cakes with. And all you have to do, I did not add any water to the grout, but I did wet the bag in the beginning. So all you have to do is load the bag. I have a little tub of water here that I'm using for my fingers and my tools. I'll show you the use for it with your fingers here in a minute, but I recommend it. Are you helping? All right, I'm settling the grout towards the bottom of the bag here. And then you just want to start winding the bag just like that. For the sake of the camera, instead of starting down here where I started, let's just show you how this works. So pressure back here on this hand, but the main squeezing is happening right here. You can see that. Now, the thing I noticed about this heavily sanded grout is that it's best not to start right away trying to form and shape it, because a lot of it comes off on your finger. Watch this. So if you come right in the moment it comes out of the bag and you start trying to shape it with your finger, a bunch of it comes off on your finger, and it doesn't matter whether or not it's with your finger or with an actual grout and mortar tool like this one that I used for making cinder block walls. You can even come in with this and it's still coming off on the tool and not really being as effective as I would like. So the better thing to do is to go through with the bag, squirt into the areas. You have a ton of work time. Go through, go in and out of all your lines, and then start shaping it once it's had a little bit of time to dry. And as you can see, as we pan here from right to left, the difference in a freshly bagged area of grout and an area that has been treated or tamped down, whatever you want to call it. All right, got my little bit of water right here. So all we're doing is either with a grout tool like this, if you want. There's going to be a lot of impediments I have noticed in this particular project, but you could go around with your tool, get it in like that, just fine. Or since you have to put it down so often, we can just go around here with our finger and start tamping the area down, smoothing out any joints in between an older bit and a newer bit until that kind of joint disappears. And I can feel it's more spongy now that I've let it sit for a bit while squirting everything in and then working up than it is like toothpaste, where it's really clinging to my finger or my tool. So I think that's the secret if you're going to use this sanded grout in wider joints like this. If you do get buildup, that's what the water bucket's for. You rinse that right off. A wet finger will bring up the cream, almost like they do when they finish concrete. So you can do that if you're really wanting to join an older and a newer area together. Otherwise, if that's not working for you, just wipe it off with a rag and get right back to it. If, like this, there's a little too much in the joint, just drag a finger down, get rid of that. Hi, buddy. You're in the camera shot. And he's off. All right. And with that, the grout is all in. While that's drying, I am going to set my attention to some final finishing details, like our little threshold right here. I have a couple boards that I had to glue together. Now we can cut them to length and start putting on 90-degree corners to build it up, and that'll be just about it. Now there's a lag bolt right here going right into the concrete. It looks pretty structural, so I didn't want to remove it. Instead, I just took a drill bit and drilled out a spot for that. And there we go. What a transformation of this little area underneath the stairwell that wouldn't have been any use, transformed into like an awesome, just one-of-a-kind little spot for Maverick here and our other two dogs. Now there's a couple other things I still want to do, one of which is caulking all the way around, but I'm going to wait to open up a tube of caulk until I'm ready to do all the other bits of finishing in the hallway so that it's not sitting there and possibly drying up. So if you found this video helpful and entertaining, will you please give it a thumbs up? It's really helpful to the algorithm to start suggesting it in the feed to more viewers like you. Also, please consider subscribing. I'm working really hard to put out good quality content. Our next video is going to be right next door to the doghouse, where we are going to install full extension drawers that will lead out into the hallway so we can store a lot of our stuff that's currently sitting in our garage. It's free. All you have to do is log in and click follow or subscribe, depending on whether or not you're watching this on YouTube or Rumble, and it's very helpful to the channel. I'm going to leave links to anything that's Amazon related. Everything else I got right at Home Depot. You can find all their stuff online. Some of the specific things like the wallpaper and the brick, the mortar, those kind of things, if you like this exact detail, I'll leave in the description below. Anything that's going to be from Amazon, full disclosure, is an affiliate link, meaning if you click on it and end up making any purchase, it won't cost you a thing, but I do get a small reward at the end of the month. Until next time, thank you for watching. Dude, not helpful.